This is the new 2025 Mercedes-Maybach GLS600, and it's an absolutely ridiculous opulent luxury SUV. This one costs $250,000. It has 550 horsepower. The back seat looks like a rich person life escape pod, and it bounces. It bounces up and down. All of this is true, and today I'm going to review the Maybach GLS and show you all of its quirks and features. Before we get started, are you ready for your next cool car? Sell your enthusiast car on Cars and Bids. Trading in your car to dealers means you aren't getting market value for your car, leaving you with less cash for your next fun car. Just look at our recent sales of these cool cars compared to current trade-in value. This is a trade-in offer, and this was the Cars and Bids result. This is a trade-in offer, and this was the Cars and Bids result. This is the trade-in offer, and this is the Cars and Bids result. Get started now on carsandbids.com. Sell on Cars and Bids and join the best community to sell your enthusiast car. All right, time for the quirks and features of the Maybach GLS600, and let's just start with the most insane quirk. It bounces. This bounces up and down. I'll get to the how and why in a second, but first, just take a look at the bouncing. Why, you might ask, does it do that? Well, unbelievably, it's actually intended to be an off-road recovery tool. You know how your car gets stuck in the sand or mud? One of the possible solutions is to bounce it up and down to try to get it free while you're also moving forward. Well, that's the theory with this. It's an off-road feature to try and bounce the car loose of whatever's got it stuck. Of course, 99% of people will actually use it to just drive around and get attention, which is what I've been doing with it, but that's the purpose of the Maybach GLS bouncing. Anyway, on to the rest of the quirks and features. And we start in back, where you climb in and you see two individual rear seats separated by a center console that is full of quirks and features. It looks like private jet levels of comfort and luxury back here, and it is. The first thing you notice is pillows. There's two of them on each seat, 4 rear pillows, one for your head that sits on top of the already pillowy headrest, and then you have a separate second pillow that just sort of floats around, trimmed in the same leather material as the seats themselves. So you can use that on your back, or you can just hold on to it and snuggle with it, but you get pillows in this car, and that is only the beginning. Let's talk about the seats themselves. As you can see, they have a footrest, and it automatically extends and retracts with the push of a button on the door panel. In fact, that's true of the entire seat. You can position the seat exactly where you would want to sit using these power controls on the door panel, just like as if it was a front seat in most cars. Well, the back seat here is the reclining movable luxury seat. In fact, the rear seat can fully recline. If you press this button here on the door panel, it automatically puts the seat in the most reclined possible position, so you're basically lying down in pure comfort as you're being chauffeured around in your Maybach GLS. And indeed, the passenger side rear seat even has a control for the passenger side front seat. So the rear passenger can move the front seat forward and out of the way in order to maximize rear seat legroom. Obviously, the seat over on this side doesn't have that same control for the driver's seat. It only works on the passenger side, but that is true luxury. Forget about the front passenger. It's all about the back in this car. And of course, the rear seats are heated, as as you can see. You can turn on the heating here. They are cooled, as you can see, and they have massaging functions. You go into this rear screen and you can turn on the rear seat massage. And it's not just on or off. There's like 7 different types of massage programs, including several hot massage programs that uses the seat massage combined with the heated seat to give you a warm massage. And there's even a workout program. This is true. You can turn on a workout in the screen for the seat, and it will tell you to like push down on certain individual pressure points in order to keep your body loose and worked out even on a long drive, so you're not just sitting in one place the entire time. This is true insane luxury. A rear seat built-in automotive workout. And since we're talking about this rear screen, let's go through it in more detail. This screen basically mirrors what you have in the infotainment screen in front, which means that rear seat passengers in this vehicle have the ability to control the navigation system. They can set a destination, send it to the front, the driver will go there, and they can change the stereo, the radio, what music is playing, what you're listening to. It can all be changed back here because this car is really built for the purposes of the rear passengers, who are really the ones in control. They're probably employing the driver. They get to choose what you listen to and where you're going. This rear screen also has an off-road section. You tap on that and you can see various off-road information displays like wheel articulation and level of angle of the vehicle, all displayed in real time as you're driving. And you also have a regular info display where you can see like the current speed, the fuel economy, the fuel range, the level of power that's being used. All that stuff is displayed in your rear screen for you to watch as you're sitting in the back being driven around. And the crazy just keeps on coming. Let's talk about between the seats, between the backrests. You have this pinstriped wood back here with the Maybach logo, and it's clearly a panel that opens. When you open it, the first thing you notice on the inside of the panel, there is a Maybach logo and a compartment where you would hold champagne flutes, which come with the car. Those are the long, tall glasses used to drink champagne. Now, look further into this compartment and you will notice another panel. Open that. It's a refrigerator that is sized perfectly so that it can store a champagne bottle so that you can keep your champagne chilled and you have your champagne flutes in order to drink it while you're being chauffeured along. It's ridiculous, and it even gets crazier. Next, let's move on to the center console here. If you open up this center console lid, you will notice cup holders for one thing. Not just regular cup holders, but heated and cooled cup holders. You push this button and you can change between heated and cooled, and it turns blue and red, the lighting color, in order to match whether it's heating or cooling your drink, which is pretty cool. But also special in here, little flat plate circles behind that. These are intended to be holders for the champagne flutes that you can store in the back. The little teeth on the outer edge of these circles actually binds to the base of the champagne flute, so it'll hold it in place even as you're being driven along, going over bumps. Your champagne won't spill when you're being driven around in your Maybach GLS. Now, in the back here, you also have a few regular things that you'd expect, like, for example, rear seat climate controls. You can see mounted here directly under some climate vents. That's, of course, pretty standard in a luxury vehicle. Same deal with charging. You have 2 USB-C ports back here for charging your devices. You have 2 HDMI ports to plug into the rear screens to watch a movie. And you have this panel, which sticks out. This is a wireless phone charger where you can, of course, charge your phone wirelessly. None of that stuff is too exciting or special, but there are still more surprises to come in the back of the Maybach GLS. In the center back here, how about this screen? On the display, it actually mirrors what you have in the central infotainment system up front and the display that you have in the rear screens behind the front seats, which are only about a foot away from this screen. But in case you don't want to lean lean forward and tap the other screens, well, you also have this central screen, and it's not just a screen, it's a tablet. You push eject, you pop it out, and then you have the infotainment system in your hands, and you can change the navigation, destination, the music, whatever, all in your hands on your tablet. Now, it may seem duplicative to have the infotainment tablet and the rear infotainment screens, but keep in mind you can also use these screens to watch a movie. So if you're driving along with the seat fully reclined, your champagne cooling in the fridge, with your champagne flutes in the center watching a movie, you still can change the navigation destination in your central handheld tablet. And of course, your head resting perfectly on the seat pillow. And there's still one more wonderful luxury item to discuss back here, and that would be the tray tables. Underneath this tablet area, this lifts up and reveals tray tables that you can pull out and drop down and then put stuff on. A laptop computer if you want to work while you're being driven along, or maybe your lunch if you want to eat while you're being driven along and watching the markets on CNBC. It is truly amazing the level of high-end equipment and luxury features that you have back here. Really an unbelievable place to be. Now, interestingly, the Maybach GLS does not come only with this two-seat rear configuration. You can also get it with a regular rear bench seat, and then you lose all this stuff in the middle. The tray tables, the champagne flute holders, the entire refrigerator, it's all gone. But why would you do that? I feel like a big part of the whole purpose of this car is this ridiculous rear seat area, so you might as well live large. Now, speaking of rear seating, it's also worth pointing out the Maybach GLS is not offered with third row seating. The regular Mercedes GLS comes standard with a third row, but you can't get it in the Maybach. It's two-row only. This isn't intended to be a three-row family transport vehicle. This is high luxury. But anyway, since I'm talking about offerings and features and how you can equip this car, I should probably take a second to discuss pricing. 4 years ago, I reviewed one of these Maybach GLS models, and I think it was $171,000. This car is about $245,000. Needless to say, some things have changed. Now, the base price is still a reasonable $178,000, so that's not too different. But this particular car is equipped with several key options that raises things a bit. For one, the exterior color. They call this Mojave Silver on top and Obsidian Black on bottom. This two-tone paint color alone is an $18,500 option. Inside, the leather interior is through Mercedes-Benz exclusive manufacturer division. They call it a combination of crystal white and black pearl, and that cost is $13,500 extra just for the interior colors and trimming. And then you have the Night Series package. This is a Night Series model which adds $25,000 to the sticker price. Those things, plus a few other small options, brings the total cost to right around $245 grand. But you're probably wondering, what do you get for $25,000 with the Night Series package? Well, the first and most noticeable upgrade is the wheels. These blacked out wheels look, well, black from afar, but when you get close, you can see they are filled with dozens of little tiny Maybach logos. Many of them all throughout the wheel. It looks, to be honest, kind of ridiculous, but that's part of what the Night Series package gives you. And you have similar many Maybach logo trim on these little front light housing sections next to the fog lights. Maybach, 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 Maybach. It's all Maybach logos here. Now, the other thing that the Night Series package gets you is a blacked out exterior. Specifically, all of the trim that in a normal GLS would be aluminum, in this car is sort of a dark chrome. So you can see the grille is sort of a black chrome and instead of bright silver aluminum, and that's carried over all throughout the car. On the outside, basically everywhere you look, all of the former brightwork is now dark chrome. In fact, that's even carried over to the key, which in most Mercedes-Benz models these days is partially piano black and partially silver. Here, that silver has been altered to be this same dark chrome matching the exterior, again part of the Night Series package. And by the way, speaking of Maybach logos everywhere, how about this? When you open up the door, projecting from the bottom of the door is a series of many Maybach logos, and they twinkle like stars. They turn on and off kind of randomly like stars twinkling. I'm not sure if that's the Night Series only or the regular model has it too. I don't spend a lot of time around these cars usually, but this feature exists and it adds to the absurdity. So too does the Maybach logo on the D pillar. The regular GLS has nothing mounted here. The Maybach has the Maybach logo, just to remind people from whatever angle they're viewing the vehicle that this is not just a regular Mercedes-Benz. And next we move up front in the Maybach GLS, which is also incredibly luxurious. Even though it's very clear that the whole point of this vehicle is the comfort of the chauffeured rear passengers, you still get some seriously high-end touches up here. Let's start with the steering wheel, where the inside of the wheel is stitched leather, looks very nice, and the outside is this piano black trim to match the black and white of the rest of the interior. It feels so nice to touch the leather and black trim. It feels, well, luxurious. Then you also have pillows up front on the headrest, just like you did in back. These built-in plush pillows where you can just put your head back and feel comfort as you're driving along. And up front, you also have the same really nice pinstriped flat wood trim that you had in back. Although in back, it's mainly confined to just the cover over the refrigerator. Here, it's kind of the entire dashboard and some of the door panels. This trim really has a chance to show itself and add to the luxury ambiance up front. Also, another nice touch up here, the pedals. You can see these aren't just standard Mercedes-Benz accelerator and brake pedals. You have this sort of metal finished Maybach logo pedals that simply look more luxurious and high quality. Also up front, you have a few of the same luxury features that you had in back. For example, the cup holders. You can see they're right here, and again, they are heated and cooling just like the cup holders that you had in back. And again, they turn blue or red depending on whether you're heating or cooling, which is a neat trick. You also have massaging seats up here, and once again, you can see many different programs of massaging to give you precisely the luxury and comfort experience that you want out of your seat when you're driving along. Now, the front also gives you the ability to turn on the Mercedes energizing comfort feature, which basically changes all things in the car to deliver a specific mood. So it'll change the climate temperature, the airflow, the ambient lighting color, the sound, the picture on the infotainment screen. It changes everything in order to set a certain vibe in the car. Take a look at what I'm referring to and listen. And since we're talking about the infotainment system, obviously not really the focus of this car, but worth pointing out, the infotainment is really fantastic. I love this Mercedes-Benz infotainment system. It is tremendously user-friendly, responsive, intuitive, very easy to use, and very well set up. And I really like the fact that the parking camera system is so easy to access. You just push this little button here in the center console, the parking cameras pop right up. There's a bunch of different display angles so you can see exactly where you're going without without having to put the car in reverse and pop up the cameras or go into a menu, which is a pretty cool touch. Another nice tech feature in this car is the gauge cluster, which is also a full screen, as you can see, and which is very configurable. You can have it display all sorts of different information, exactly what you want to see, and it works very well, easy to use, and nice to be able to show so many different things precisely tailored to what you want. And speaking of technology, one of the updates to the GLS in general recently has been the addition of this little square in the center console. This is a fingerprint reader, and it's tied to your driver profile. So when you get in the car, instead of having to adjust all of your memory settings, you put your finger on the fingerprint reader and it knows who's driving, and then it pulls up your radio presets and your seat settings. And frankly, it's a really cool idea that's now been added to the GLS. With all this said, and all these nice luxury and tech features that make this such a ridiculously premium vehicle, I do have one drawback that I'm surprised by, and that would be the stalks that come off the steering column. On the right side, you have the gear selector stalk. On the left side, the turn signals and wipers, and they're just cheap. They're cheap plastic, they look cheap, they feel cheap, and it's kind of surprising they did that. This is basically the only cheap plastic in this entire interior, but it's a piece that you actually touch pretty frequently. The gear selector every time you get in the car, put it in drive, and the turn signal all the time. And they could have just wrapped it in silver like they did with some of the other plastic pieces, but no, they just left it sort of unfinished black plastic. It really is kind of the only drawback of this otherwise tremendously nice interior. And next we move on to the cargo area in the Maybach GLS, which, to be honest, is almost laughably compromised compared to a regular GLS cargo area for two major reasons. One is the refrigerator. In order to have a refrigerator, you gotta have, well, stuff behind it that keeps things cool, and so all of that sticks out really far into the cargo area, which limits what you can put in here. But even if the refrigerator wasn't there, even if you got the second row bench seat, so there was no fridge, you would still have a problem because the cargo cover here is hooked onto a panel of pinstriped wood and extra speakers in order to maximize the sound experience for the rear seat passengers. Then that also intrudes on the cargo area and obviously affects the usability of this vehicle. With this stuff in mind, you can see why they don't offer third row seating in the Maybach GLS. There's too much second row luxury to make room for the third row. So usability, practicality is a little diminished, but that's not really the point of this vehicle. You're not going to load a whole apartment's worth of stuff to move in your Maybach GLS. It's supposed to be genteel, comfortable. The only thing you'll ever put back here is maybe a case of, well, champagne that you're dropping off as a Christmas gift to your butler. And finally, we move under the hood, where the Mercedes-Benz Maybach GLS600 gives you a twin turbocharged V8 that makes 550 horsepower. Obviously a huge figure, and it sends this vehicle from 0 to 60 in about 4.7 seconds, which is pretty quick considering you're moving all of that stuff I've just shown you. Now, the standard GLS, the regular base model here in the States, is the GLS 450, which uses a turbo 6-cylinder. You can also get a GLS 580, which uses this same powertrain, the non-Maybach version, but the Maybach adds 40 horsepower over the regular GLS 580. Plus, the Maybach also adds this little plaque on the engine cover with the Maybach logo, so you know this ain't no stinking GLS 580. Now, also worth pointing out up front, last year the GLS was updated, facelifted, with a new front end design. It got a different grille, different headlight shape, different bumpers, intended to give it sort of a more modern facelifted look. In fact, that's the initial reason I wanted to review this vehicle, the facelifted GLS, but then they told me they had a Maybach one, and I figured, yeah, what the hell, let's go bouncing. And so, with that in mind, let's go bouncing. Let's get this out on the road and see how it drives. All right, driving the GLS Maybach. Now, I gotta tell you, I make fun of this car because it's such a giant vehicle, only 4 seats. It has some ridiculous trim and style and accessories, the wheels, etc. It bounces, but I gotta tell you, when it comes right down to the actual driving experience, this is an unbelievable car. And I'm not just surprised by it because it's so nice and so calm and so luxurious, but I'm surprised because they were able to do that to an existing vehicle that is very nice. The GLS is probably my favorite three-row luxury SUV, but it's not an ultra luxury car. And they just made this so good. You know, I've driven them all, right? I've driven the Bentayga, I've driven all the full-size biggest Range Rovers. This car is absolutely on par, directly competing with the very best of the luxury SUVs. Maybe not the Rolls-Royce Cullinan, but that costs twice as much money. That's probably a little bit more substantial feeling, a little more solid, even a little more quiet and comfortable. But other than that, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable how just pillowy smooth this car is. Let's start with the ride quality. Absolutely one of the finest riding cars that Mercedes-Benz has ever manufactured. This thing is just so comfortable. You barely feel the bumps. You have very soft suspension. The result is that you do have pretty decent body roll through hard turns. The car definitely leans more than you might want if you're going sharp or fast, but who would be in this car? That's not the point of this vehicle. And it's just so comfortable. And then you have the powertrain. The engine is so fantastically butter smooth. I'm astonished at how just beautifully smooth this engine really feels. This is up there with the very smoothest, most comfortable, calm V8s I've ever driven. Then you have the noise level situation, which is quite amazing in this car. You basically don't hear anything on the outside. There's a little bit more tire noise than I would want to hear, and a little bit more than I do hear in the Bentayga and the other top luxury SUVs. But aside from that, I mean, you don't hear anything outside going on down the road, other vehicles, that kind of thing. It is just completely insulated in here. And this car is so perfectly transformed into a really great luxury SUV that you would forget that you're in a vehicle that starts out as a luxurious but fairly basic luxury three-row SUV, you know, for families. Like, this doesn't feel like that. This feels like it was purpose-built to be an ultra-luxury SUV, even though it wasn't. But they've done such a great job making this transformation. And I think that this speaks to the quality of what they can do with the Maybach line. I loved Maybach when it was a standalone brand that made its own cars, but I also think it's a smart idea to turn Maybach into a luxury brand if you can do it well enough. If you can make the cars good enough to stand alone from their Mercedes-Benz counterparts. And sitting here in this car, driving this one, it's very clear there is absolutely no question that this car distinguishes itself wonderfully from the regular GLS. It is a ridiculous car. The backseat stuff is crazy. The bouncing thing is stupid. Like, it's all absurd. But there are people for whom this is not just an ironic, insane purchase that they're having some fun and want something ridiculous. There's also people who really want like the highest of high end in terms of ultra luxury, and I don't see why this car is not like a really good contender with some of the very best. In fact, I would say my only criticisms of this car, I would give two. One is that the exterior styling is a little over the top. And I have a suspicion Mercedes-Benz looked at their customers and asked their customers and figured out from their customers that that's what they want. But it would be nice to have a less over the top version. Now, you don't get the Night Series, you don't get the two-tone paint. Not only do you save $50,000 with those two things, but you do have a more subtle version of this car, and that's acceptable. But even the base wheels get a little out there. Even the base badging is a little out there. It'd be nice to be a little bit more under the radar. The other thing that this car needs, honestly, is three-row seating. Like, I think that there are people who want to use this as a family car but want all of the Maybach amenities. And I think it's a mistake not to offer it with the third row. Land Rover realized that with the latest Range Rover. After resisting doing a three-row Range Rover for so long, they finally put a third row in the full-size Range Rover because they know there are people who want to use it that way. And I think that Mercedes-Benz would find the same thing out of this car. But ultimately, very impressive vehicle with a lot of great attributes, even as ridiculous as it is. All these $200,000, $300,000 luxury SUVs are ridiculous, but they're also pretty compelling, and that goes for this one as well. And so that's the Mercedes-Maybach GLS600. What an absurd vehicle. Huge sizing, huge luxury, huge pricing. This is crazy and luxurious on a level that few of us could possibly imagine. But now you know all of its quirks and features. And now it's time to give the Maybach GLS a DougScore. And the DougScore is here, 65 out of 100, which puts the GLS600 here against rivals. This isn't a performance car or a particularly practical car, and it's very expensive, but it's also amazingly luxurious with a fantastically comfortable, supple ride and a lovely, smooth engine. This may have started life as a plebeian regular GLS, but Mercedes-Maybach transforms it into something so much more, and it's right at home competing against the big dogs like Bentley and Rolls-Royce.